probably some incredibly good news, especially in the Cornwall area, and the Cornwall Council is your area, shall we say, that you happen to live in, and is what controls your local authority. You will, of course, know that Reform did quite well in that area and had, well, elected the most councillors out of that area. However, did not have a majority. And that is kind of important because so long as they don't have a majority, then other parties can come together, form a coalition, and, well, deny Reform running in that area. And this is one such area where Reform were in control. They are now not, because a new coalition, I believe, of the Greens, Libs, and Independents have all come together and gone, how about no? And they seem to have absolutely said, no, we aren't working with Reform. We would rather work with each other. And that's exactly what happened. And of course, Reform aren't very well upset at this. But here's the thing: this is how our system works. Not too surprisingly, this is how it works. If you do not have that magic number, enough seats to have that majority, two things either happen. Either A, you are in a minority government, meaning you don't have a majority, but neither does anyone else want to sort of work together to have that or reach that magic number to sort of, take control. Or you have to do a deal with independents or another area to sort of maintain that control. However, that becomes very dangerous because, well, they might pull their support if you decide to do something crazy or something like that. It's how our system works. But good news, probably, if you live down in Cornwall, to say the least. And as we'll see in a moment, a lot of relief in the comments on this as well. But in Cornwall, you've just managed to dodge a bullet on this, quite probably. So we're going to go into this because, again, I think it's worth reminding people on this. And of course, I want to remind people as well, if you are a councillor who is one of these Reform now controlled areas and you want to sort of have a platform and speak out and tell people what's going on in your council, then by all means get in touch with me. I will gladly give you a platform. You can come on here. We'll have a chat about what's going on and what ridiculousness Reforms going on in your area. But as always, thank you very much to everyone for watching. Like I say, links down below, Patreon page, the Buy Me Coffee link, the YouTube thank you button, and of course, as always, there's the Pony Club down below as well. So let's crack on then into this. So this comes from Cornwall Live. Cornwall Live. But there you go. Reform now gives up on leading Cornwall Council. So what's happened here on this? Reform UK will not be leading Cornwall Council, as its leader in Cornwall now blames other groups on the authority for playing, quote, political games. Councillor Rob Parsonage has conceded that Reform has been unable to form a working majority of 44 seats. As I was saying at the beginning, if you can't get that majority, then you have to go into coalition with someone else, or you end up in a minority because the other parties can't also form that working majority either. So Reform, as it continues on here, was voted in now as the biggest political group at the council after local elections with 28 seats. However, it now appears that the Liberal Democrats, Labour, the Conservatives have now refused to join forces with Reform to lead the united authority. It also looks like there will now be the Lib Dems with 26 seats, the Independents with 16 seats, an alliance. So I got that wrong. It is the Lib Dems and the Independents who are now working together to form an alliance to keep Reform out, which I think, hey, good on them. That's kind of interesting stuff that I like to see on this one. They will now be, of course, working with a minority of political groups from the administration. It is very likely now that Liberal Democrat leader, Councillor Leah Frost, who represents Bodmin Poltrock's division, will be elected leader of the Cornwall Council at its first meeting in the new regime tomorrow, Tuesday, 20th of May, which will be yesterday when this comes out. Although today, but yesterday when this comes out. Mr. Parsonage, of course, has ruled out a Reform nominee or even accepting a nomination from others for council leader at the meeting. He said today, here at Council Hall, Reform UK must now concede that it is unable to form a working majority of 44 seats. And on this basis, I've informed the Chief Executive Officer that we will not be putting forward Reform UK or accepting nominations from others to form the administration. So not only are you denying, but you're admitting that you can't form a majority, but you're also saying, yeah, we're not going to work with them either. So pretty much, back to the traditional form of Reform UK, complaining about all, the people being in power on here. No, no responsibility for the Reform UK councillors in Cornwall, which, hey, will probably be quite good. Anyway, he continued saying, despite, of course, our best efforts, the Liberal Democrats, Labour, and some independents have now refused to work with us instead, which again is they are allowed to do that. They are entirely allowed to do that. That is how our system works, as just as you have done on this one. But he continued saying, instead, they have now opted to play political football with the council chamber. And Cornwall Council and Cornwall need stability to achieve economic investment, and this old style of political posturing will not accomplish this. I love it. That's what they did. It's what they do. It's what they do. It's sort of what they do on this. But anyway, he continues. Cornwall's voters gave us a very clear mandate now for change, electing us now as the largest group from a standing start now to fix this mess left by the Liberal Democrats and Tory rule. But this can only be done by strong administration through a coalition now of all parties. Yeah, and they don't want to work with you. I wonder why. I wonder why they don't want to work with you. Instead now of listening to the people, from other parties are now choosing to play political games. They are now intentionally setting us up to fail. Under these circumstances, we sadly see no viable route for reform administration with cross-party support to operate in the region. And remain, of course, firmly committed now being a strong voice, bringing new methods now of challenge and improvement, holding the administration to account and calling out, quote, this nonsense. You mean the political situation on this, but anyway, as of last week, it did, of course, appear that there was still some political wrangling, of course, between the Lib Dems and the independents. One insider, of course, dubbed it as a Mexican standoff. Apparently, the Lib Dems are demanding the majority of seats on the cabinet, but the independents are holding out for a 5-5 split. But it will all become clear at tomorrow's meeting. So, what did they have to say about this? What did the people of Cornwall have to say about this? I think it will be very interesting on this. So a lot of people saying on this one, well, they're refusing to work with reform, should be ashamed, childish behavior. Hey, that's how our system works. That's how it works. So when you're saying, ironic that the UK, the Reform UK Limited booted out the Tories, have the largest number of councillors, and we end up now with a left of centre-led council. Good news all round. It seems that Reform UK Limited don't actually fully appreciate how democracy works, nor indeed do some of the more vocal supporters. Very, very true. Say, what did Reform expect? Parties have very different views. You can't expect them to agree with everything. And for a start, would you want a person who probably hasn't worked all their life reluctantly now to take care of your mum or dad, both now in a care home? If they don't want to be there, they are not going to give the correct level of care to your loved ones. But this is what Reform wants to do. Who the heck voted them in if they can't even use this to build a China shop of ideas? Someone else said here, despite our best efforts, the Liberal Democrats and Labour and some independents now refuse to work with us. Well, that is not a surprise. When Reform UK can't comprehend is the simple reality. They are political pariahs. No one sane or rational will want to work with them because of their toxic policy agenda. Not too surprised on this one. the big story for me, which is now largely going to reported, emerging from the 25 Cornwall Council elections, is the proven. Did we nearly meet any more evidence? The very dysfunctional nature of first past the post, the means of electing those who now govern on our behalf. The overall turnout for the May 1st election was 37%. Some new councillors are now backed by approximately over a third of those votes. Steve Webb boasts to be the active endorsement of just 7% of the registered electorate. How can that election result be described as even legitimate or valid? And this was one of the big areas that happened. We've talked about this before. Cornwall, someone won on just 7.2% of the vote. That is insane. That is insane. But no, I do agree with him. There needs to be really looked at, not just at the local level, but at a national level as well. Yep, they're the largest individual group, of course, by 2 seats. But if no one wants to actually ally with them, they don't have to, especially if reform policies are not to their liking. That's democracy. Exactly. There's got to be some more good ones here. Someone else says here, yeah, there's a very obvious difference now in the number of pro-reform comments made on articles before and after local elections, which gives the impression now of a very highly coordinated campaign. This was used in a fairly successful effort now to influence public opinion. Again, very true. One of the things that reform does and encourages people is get on your local social media groups and pages and just start commenting. Just comment every single day if you can, and they push people to do that. The Reform candidates in Cornwall slipped down the Nigel Farage Kool-Aid and they thought they'd sweep the board. They didn't. Now they actually have to work for their money, and understandably, they're not happy. Glad Reform has fallen to pieces. Yep. Yeah, Reform will just stand on the sidelines and snipe, which is just the best of what they're at. Yeah, as someone said, how can Reform claim to have a clear mandate where they didn't even get a majority of councillors? They need to take control of the council. Never mind lessons in how democracy works. They need lessons in the English language. Yep. So there you have it. Yeah, probably good news if you live down in Cornwall. I'm not gonna lie, on that news, at least you dodged the Reform Council that time. But like I say, get out and vote because as you saw there, someone won on 7% of the vote, which is insane. Insane to think that was the case, that he won on such a small minority. And I would love to know what the actual number of that, what was that percentage in numbers? Because I have a shocking feeling that guy might have won maybe on 100 or even less of votes on that. And that is quite frankly terrifying. That is why you need to get out and vote when it comes to your local elections. Because why Farage drives his supporters, nails it into them time and time again. Get out and vote, 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 get out and vote. That's all he says to them. Because he knows if he can drive people out to vote, which is attracting the older end of voters, which they do, they will go out and vote. And in cases where you have this, where you have a very low voter turnout, guess what happens? So, as always, let me know what you think down below. Are you in Cornwall? Are you happy with this? Are you not happy? Who knows? Let me know what you think, of course, down below in the comments. And of course, as always, we'll see you all next time.